TVETs, very well aligned with the priorities of my administration and the priorities of Vision 2030, Kenyan Vision. On the airport, we have agreed on what to do in the airport space. We have agreed on what to do on very well aligned agriculture space, smart agriculture. We share very common positions on the reform of the international financial architecture. I have taken time to brief my brother, President Macron, on the National Infrastructure Fund, a mechanism we established recently, and how they can participate so that we can leverage more resources. And I'm truly grateful that he has offered to work with us and work with the Africa Development Bank, which I met early today, to assist ATIDI, which is our insurance facility, so that mechanisms such as the National Infrastructure Fund, which targets Kenya's development, can be assisted to leverage private sector resources, pension resources, insurance resources, crowding in with other partners so that we can have adequate resources to run our development program. And therefore, this Africa-French Summit and the bilateral relations between Africa and France speaks to Kenya's transformation, because the tenets and the aspirations of the summit and the relationship between France and Kenya and the relationship between President Macron and myself are very key to unlocking the potential for us to be able to drive our development. And I have briefed my brother, President Macron, on matters to do with transport and logistics, energy, and agricultural transformation. You have been following what I have been canvassing in Kenya, and those are the three primary areas of investment that we are targeting if we are to move Kenya to a first world country. On transport and logistics, you've already seen the signing of the agreement on the rail, the commuter rail in Nairobi, the discussions we've had on the airport, the discussions we've had on the port of Mombasa and other ports. That speaks to my first pillar of transport and logistics. You've also heard that we are leveraging on France's technology and long-term engagement with nuclear energy. You heard President Macron say 75% of their energy is nuclear energy. Save nuclear energy. And this is a program they have engaged in since the Second World War. Therefore, Kenya is going to benefit from France's understanding of nuclear energy as I drive the transformation of our country. You know very well, I have said, we need to generate 10,000 megawatts of energy in the next 7 years. And one of the interventions is going to be in nuclear energy as we expand our generation in geothermal, hydro, wind, and solar. And finally, on matters to do with the agricultural transformation, I'm very happy that our tea farmers will soon be getting better prices from their purple tea and all the other farmers in that space. I'm very happy with the agreement that has been signed. But I've also explained to President Macron investment opportunities in our dam construction, because we now have a water purchase agreement for commercial water. And we are looking at companies from France that can work with us on the construction of the 50 mega dams that I have announced, so that we can take the transformation of Kenya in the right direction. Finally, somebody has asked me what is different between France and others. Every relationship is unique. And therefore, we have different relationships with different people. And I keep being asked this question: are you looking east or are you looking west? And my standard answer is that we are looking forward.
As for the first question, Emmanuel, I want just to clarify the fact that Western African countries will be present. I mean, President of Senegal, President of Ivory Coast, President of Gabon, President of DRC, and many others will be here. It's hard to say that Western Africa will not be present in this room. You have 3 countries, and I do regret that, which decided, because of the coup and the behaviors of the military people in charge, to put them aside from the rest of the club, by the way, aside of ECOWAS as well and others. It doesn't mean that West Africa is not part of this meeting. The biggest leaders of Western Africa will be here. And beyond that, we've been very vigilant to have civil society, even from Sahel states, being present. Because we can disagree with some of these governments, quote to quote, but we never disagree with people. We love these people. In Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger. So all these people are involved in this conference and in this summit. And we will have a lot of intellectuals, academics, artists, entrepreneurs coming from these countries being present. C'est un peu dans la continuité que je répondrai à votre question. Je n'ai jamais pris
as being just one block, our backyard. And this is something I said as of November in the speech I gave in Ouagadougou. So we have no desire with this Africa Forward Summit after the one that was held in Montpellier in 2021. There's no desire to hide anything. No, it's just a way of saying Africa is a whole, and we are really Pan-African, and we believe that Africa is a continent, and that the continent has a lot to build, with the youngest population in the world, a fantastic demographic dividend, and with the greatest growth in the world. The growth of Africa was just higher than Southeast Asia's. So we have to take a different look at Africa. And indeed, it is a continent that I want no longer France to consider it as our backyard, quote unquote, or in which our CEOs would have guaranteed contracts or partnerships because it would be in French-speaking countries. No, or because France would give some kind of guarantee or insurance that things would happen. No, and that's over since 2017. Because way before 2017, our companies had started losing market shares in French-speaking African countries because Africa is a competitive ground. I mean, and rightly so. And because I believe that we need a well-balanced partnership and a fair partnership. So the transformation we've been carrying out for the past 10 years is based on state sovereignty and territorial integrity. There's been a coup in Mali. You don't want France to be in Mali because you don't want us to fight terrorism. Well, we'll just leave. No offense. No offense. But the events have shown that this wasn't not the best solution or the best option for Mali, and I would like to pay tribute to our soldiers here who fell. Too many of them fell for the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Mali between 2013 and 2001. But we really rethought or revamped our relationship based on security, not to pull out, but to rebalance things wherever there were bases that were too obvious, that were the remnants of past times. We transformed these French bases as elements of partnership, like we did in Gabon, and we founded our relationship in Benin, Ghana, Gabon. We reinvented it in Western African countries, and it works. It gives us excellent results in Benin and in Nigeria. We rethought our economic relations. The summit testifies to it. We reshaped the cultural relations. And I mean, when talking about the restitution of cultural objects. The people are saying France would never agree, but it was a true attempt. So we're showing that there is a well-balanced partnership. Western African countries are here, are present, and France, when we see what we've been able to do over the past years with Benin in security, and when we see what we've been doing with Gabon, and what we've done with the president of Senegal, and we'll see tomorrow when we see what we're doing in sports, in culture, or in reinventing our partnership in security with local academies. I mean, we're doing wonderful things. We're transforming things, and we are creating something unprecedented in the relationship between France and the African continent. Now, Kenya, no French president has visited before my visit in 2019. I mean, South Africa has created a strong competitiveness, but I could mention what we managed to do in the past few years with Morocco, or to tell you more about our relationship with Portuguese-speaking countries. So I'm looking forward too. And I can see that we have transformed quite a lot of things in the past 10 years, and we've never avoided French-speaking African countries. I was in Gabon last spring, and next fall I'll be in Gabon, Senegal, and Côte d'Ivoire. And those are French-speaking countries. So we're still moving forward, and we're present through our renewed partnerships with all of these countries. Now, to answer the last two questions that were put to me on Iran and Algeria. On Iran, I think there's a lot of confusion. I think we need to calm things down. You talked about a deployment, quote unquote. Now, there was never any deployment taken into consideration or imagined. No, I decided a few years ago to move the Charles de Gaulle and the frigates that it was escorting and the whole air and naval group over to the eastern Mediterranean, to Lucerne. It was never a deployment, but we are just ready. And from the beginning, from day one, we say, okay, freedom of navigation. That's the motto. We have to put an end to any blockade, whoever is holding it, and refuse any kind of toll and allow free navigation. We discussed this with the president. The whole African continent has fallen victim to the blockade since the Hormuz Strait was blocked. So we never envisaged, so look at all of our declarations, we never thought about any kind of deployment. That was not what France wanted. We deployed an ad hoc mission co-steered with the British authorities, bringing together 50 countries and international organizations to allow, in a concerted manner, to come into a dialogue with Iran and to ensure, as soon as conditions may allow it, to allow for free circulation in the Strait of Hormuz and free circulation, free maritime traffic for fertilizers, oil, and any kind of other goods. I don't know who is commanding, but this is what France has to say, and I can only call for everybody's quietness. I mean, there's too much talking and too much excitement, even in words. And I think we're all the victims of what is going on now. Our fellow citizens in France are paying the price of a war we never wanted. So today, let's try and remain calm and prioritize a peaceful reopening of the Hormuz Strait and have priorities in an adapted ballistic and nuclear framework. And France is fully respectful of the rule of law and international law. As for Algeria, I'm really happy of what happened in the past few years. The trip of the Minister for Armed Forces to Algeria, and the good discussions they had with President Tebboune, the Chief of the Armed Forces, and the delegations that ensued. And as I said, during the last few weeks, my obligation is to defend the interests and the rights of the French citizens. And our common interest is to have a peaceful or a peace relationship and constructive relationship with Algeria, which needs to be respectful on both sides and bring solutions on all topics. And the events during the past few months were very deleterious to France and Algeria, and it's not what I want. So my wish is to be pragmatic and to serve the interests of our fellow citizens, to find solutions that are humanitarian and migratory, economic or regional, but to construct solutions that are responsible and accountable. And I think this is one first step forward. We've already seen a few signals from Algeria, and I think the reconstruction of our relationships will be developed with esteem. So once again, allow me to thank you, President Ruto, for the words you mentioned right now on the trust in our partnership. And he said, far better than I could ever could say, how strong our common wishes to look forward for both our countries and for the African continent. And there was always a deliberate will when we talked about the relationship with different European countries and Africa to look towards the past. We always wanted to develop new relations. It's the whole spirit of bilateral relations. It's the whole spirit of our joint chairmanship of the Africa Forward Summit and the renewed partnership in all fields. And this is what is going to allow both our countries to succeed and to succeed with Africa. And I'm very proud to be here with you tonight and with dear William. Thank you for hosting the event.
Allow me, Mr. President, to conclude just saying two things. Number one, we can speak for ourselves as Africans. And I want to say, and to congratulate President Macron for having the courage to recalibrate the relationship between Africa and France, to make it more inclusive. It's not about Anglophone, Francophone. I think broaden the conversation, make it much more inclusive, broaden the engagement, make the engagement mutually beneficial with shared responsibility. We understand as African leaders that we too have responsibilities. This relationship is not going to be one-sided. We will be expecting from France as they will be expecting from us. And they will be giving as much as we are giving. That is the win-win, mutually beneficial relationship. And that relationship that President Macron is now championing, a relationship of equals, is the correct template for our relationship. Not thinking about aid and loans, but thinking more about investments and about what Africa can offer. We have real assets. We have young people, demographic dividend. We have natural resources. We have energy resources. These resources count for something, and we want a balanced relationship, and that is what this Nairobi summit is about, and that is what the Nairobi Declaration will be about. And I want to be very clear that what President Macron is doing, recalibrating this relationship, is actually what we want as Africans. This is how we want the relationship to be going into the future. And finally, on the challenges we have at the Strait of Hormuz and the problems we have, I was having consultations with my fellow heads of state earlier today from Sierra Leone, from Senegal, and all of us are affected. Fuel prices, oil prices have gone up by between 20 and 30%. We've just come out of COVID. We've suffered the consequences of the war in the middle of Europe, and now we have another situation. For those of us on the receiving end, because this is no longer about 2 or 3 or 5 countries. It's about many countries and many people and millions of people. The sooner we find a resolution, the better for all of us. It is our very strong belief and urge that the people concerned should not just consider their interests, they should also consider the interests of millions who today are paying the price of the war in that corner. So whatever that can be done should be done so that we find a resolution and we find a ceasefire and we find a resolution of the conflict there. And President Macron and your colleagues in the EU, you please deploy your diplomacy and all other assets that you have to see how we can bring this to an end. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, it was our pleasure to have you. President Macron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the joint press statement. I request that we remain seated. Kindly let's remain seated to allow the photographers to get their shots as His Excellency Dr. William Ruto sees off His Excellency Emmanuel Macron after a wonderful time. So please remain seated as His Excellency sees off his colleague, and we call it a night for today. Thank you very much. Do have yourselves a wonderful evening. Take care of yourselves.
Skia, ni juicy. Flavor zote tamu tena fruity. Yummy na flow kama maji, juu ni tamu kama sali. Ni juicy. Are you bored? Kuna vitu zinakuudhi, usijali my bro, hebu kama nataka juicy juni.